that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the outstandingly famous Tom Fennell. And every day I get up early and take a look at the news that lasts about 4 hours, looking through news on energy and climate change. And I keep a blog. Each piece that's of interest to me, I get together a 55 word synopsis. I hook it up to a link to the original article, and I assemble 10 to 15 of those, which goes into a blog posting. And by the way, today, being the 2nd of June that this is being recorded, is the 4th anniversary.
Is it really?
Of my blog. Yeah. I have not missed a single day in 4 years. And hopefully that'll continue for at least another week or two. But,
well, what we're discussing is the best of the blog.
Yeah, this is the top 20 items.
We don't have time to really get into depth on some of these articles.
Man. Some of them are fun.
Some of them really very interesting.
Yeah, some of them are fun.
So if you want to look up George's blog and click on the link.
Yep, it is geoharvey.wordpress.com, geoharvey.wordpress.com. And it's got lots and lots of stuff. Not everything.
There's a couple of them that I noted that have some nice slideshows, and I'll try to mention that we have them.
There was one of them I chose specifically because of that, because people could go there and just see picture after picture after picture.
If I didn't catch it, you will, and we'll mention it, because I saw the slideshow.
Yep.
And it was fun.
Okay. So anyway, let's just start. We're starting with Thursday, May 26th. And we have a picture for Thursday, May 26th. This is a picture of a wind turbine. Lord knows where it is. Okay, what do we got? This is from Renews, Tom.
Yeah, it says renewables employ 8.1 M. That stands for million.
8.1 million people worldwide are now employed by the renewable energy industry, a 5% increase from last year, according to the International Renewable Energy Agency. The report said that while renewable jobs grew, thermal energy sector jobs fell, and a lot of that fall was in coal, which is
interesting because the prices are falling.
It's a very interesting situation where the price of oil is down. It's up from its lows, and in fact,
it's still down.
Got up to $50, but it's still down. Very few oil companies can make money at the current price of oil, and even so, I
think they're just rolling the oil over to pay their debts.
That's all they can do.
Yeah,
that's all they can do. The banks won't loan them money because they don't have assets that they can sell. They can't sell their assets because the price of oil is down, and the world is awash in oil.
Is that catch-22 or what?
Yeah, the whole thing is it's a catch-22 times 5. It is partly because...
So that's catch 110.
Yeah, something like that. It's partly because a lot of people in this world are unsure about oil. They know that they don't know what the price of oil is going to be in a year, but they do know what the price of renewable energy is going to be in 20 years. They can take it to the bank.
Some pretty good prices on that.
Yeah, they are. They are indeed. Anyway...
Little takeaway here.
Yes.
In the U.S., renewable energy jobs increased by 6%.
Yes.
While employment in oil and gas decreased by 18%.
Yes.
And in China, renewables employed 3.5 million people, while oil and gas employed 2.5 million.
Yeah, and that is in China.
That's in China.
It's falling. Yeah. The fossil fuel industry is kind of coming apart in China as well, even though they've got more people buying cars.
Yeah.
You know, this is a crazy place in the history of the market, because part of the reason why the price of oil is low is because we're in that peak oil situation, and people are hesitant about investing. And as a matter of fact, 98.6+% of all new electric generating capacity in the United States in the first quarter of this year was renewable. Natural gas accounted for about 1.4%, a little less than 1.4%.
A little less than 1%.
And you know, there's an interesting
This is the
thing.
new construction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's something interesting about that too. People should understand this. When you're talking about the percentage of power that is based on, that is renewable, the federal government doesn't count anything unless it is, unless it meets a certain size
We've talked
threshold.
about that. So rooftop solar is just not
Rooftop
even getting
solar
mentioned.
is not getting counted.
But in the aggregate, it's significant.
It's 40%.
That's pretty significant
They
to me.
don't have a way of keeping track of this. They're
Yeah,
just not
too small.
and they're now struggling with how to do that. But historically, they have either had a cutoff at 1 megawatt, or they've had a cutoff at 5 megawatts. And for those offices and purposes for which 5 megawatts was used, there is no solar power being generated in the state of Vermont. Now you drive through Vermont and look around, and you're going to see that they haven't got things straight.
There's a few people out there trying to put a moratorium on the solar power that doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there you go. Okay, that was from Renews. We should
Okay.
probably continue going. Our next item is from
we
BBC.
got another one coming up. It's also got a picture.
That has a picture too. What do you got for that,
Let me
Tom?
get the picture up first. Oil hits $50 a barrel for the first time this year, so it's going back up.
It's gone up to 50. Well, it isn't $50 a barrel now.
In case you don't recognize that, that's an offshore oil rig. And
Yeah.
why? How do I know that? Because it's flaring.
You know, if you look at this,
They're burning methane into CO2 and throwing it away.
that's natural gas burning up there that's getting thrown away because they don't have any way to deal with it other than burning it. They don't want it to be released into the atmosphere because the stuff is dangerous and it's a powerful pollutant. And
More
that
so than
flame,
the CO2 that they're turning.
oh
it
yeah,
into.
much. But that flame, just look at the size of that flame. That's got to be 10 stories tall.
That's a lot of gas.
That's a lot of gas. You know, I'm not joking when I say 10 stories tall. That ship is probably at least 5. And, you know, these things are huge. That is a big flame. My bet is that if you stood on the deck of that offshore oil rig, you'd feel the heat from that.
I bet you would. I bet you would. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, the price of oil has gone above $50 a barrel for the first time in 2016 as supply disruptions and increased mobile demand continued to fuel a recovery. Supply disruption being that fire in Canada primarily. Mm-hmm. The rise followed U.S. data on Thursday showing that oil inventories had fallen, largely again due to supply disruptions following fires in Canada. So that's the fire at Fort McMurray.
Now we'll be talking about that later, but the
will.
fires have not yet hit any of the production areas. have
Right, and as a matter of fact, one of the things that I looked into when that fire came up was I looked at the work that they had done to make sure that those areas were safe.
they? Well, if one of these tar sands joints starts burning, they're never going to put it out.
You got a serious problem. But they
We
have
have to
fire
wait for the
breaks.
snow to put it out.
Yeah, they have fire breaks that are like a quarter of a mile across. Now,
Okay. Well, I'm sure they know
this
what they're
fire
doing.
has jumped fire breaks that were that size because, well, you know, people talk about fire breaks and they say, well, a quarter mile. You know, I remember an engineer talking about the Connecticut River and saying, well, what would jump that? Listen, gang, the Peshtigo fire jumped Green Bay. Okay, that was a long time ago. Peshtigo fire was the fire in
You
Wisconsin.
mean Green Bay is like that hole in the thumb of the glove of Michigan?
No, Green. That's what is the name of that? Green Bay is the bay off of Lake Michigan, Lake Michigan, which goes into kind of Wisconsin.
Okay,
And
different bay.
It's a different bay.
Okay.
The narrowest point on Green Bay is 10 miles across.
And it's jumped that.
And it jumped that, and they think the Peshtigo fire, some people say, it may actually have jumped Lake Michigan because there was a fire in Michigan the same day. That was the same day as the Chicago fire in the 19th century.
Oh, okay.
And it was
before my time.
A little before my time too. But it wiped out entire communities. There were communities where there's just no evidence that there was anything there aside from hearthstones. So you can't get too excited about safety of fire breaks. But they did have fire breaks. They had foam on everything that they could put in. The fire breaks long preceded this fire because they knew it could be a problem. And as I understand it, they had fire crews that stayed behind. Mm-hmm. And stayed there even though they knew that the fire was coming, and those fire crews were there to prevent the these are brave guys.
You better believe it. Yeah.
You know, and I have to say, brave. 1,600 buildings burned down, and they only had 100 firemen on hand to deal with that. Almost 90,000 people evacuated. This is a huge story. Okay. Our next item is from Friday, May 27th, and this comes from Scientific American.
This is an interesting development here.
Yeah.
Shareholders vote to alter Exxon's board due to climate change.
Wow. ExxonMobil shareholders passed a proposal to nominate outside candidates to the board with 62% support. The move could affect the company's decisions on climate change. Maybe. The New York City Comptroller's fiduciary for 5 pension funds filed a proxy access resolution.
Well, this is what's going on here. Traditionally, the boards of directors of Exxon, like many large corporations, is all filled with their Goombas.
Well,
you know,
they're stockholders.
Boards of directors,
yeah.
The stockholders they are, but the stockholders elect the boards of directors. And all of these boards of directors are themselves investors, stockholders.
Yeah.
They're how would you say it? Simpatico.
Yes.
Okay. And here we got a pension fund, and by the way, there's some other pension fund kind of organizations.
This is where you get 62%.
Trying to change this.
Yeah.
And this is the first niche that they've been able to make in that armor. They still haven't accomplished anything.
Now, I want to point out something to people. This is separate from the divestment thing.
Yeah.
If you divest, you can't get something before the board.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are other people who are saying, I'm not going to divest. I want to push these people around. And when you're as big as the New York City Comptroller's fiduciary, you can push them around a bit.
Well, that's what's happening. That's exactly
what's
what's happening.
Okay. So now we are up to an item from CNN, and we have a picture on this.
Oh, yeah.
Should we put this picture up? There it is.
I can put him up.
You can put him up. There he is. Oh, goodness gracious. Does he
Wait a
look
second,
like,
I'm scared.
Does this man look like he might just tell you something that isn't quite true? Okay.
Well, the headline here is Trump vows energy independence and he slams Hillary Clinton.
Oh, isn't that smart? Donald Trump pledged to make the U.S. energy independent by reducing dependence on foreign oil and rolling back environmental regulations restricting oil and natural gas exploration. He vowed that he would cancel the Paris Climate Agreement and cut off all U.S. spending to UN climate change initiatives.
Well, among other things, he's promised to approve the Keystone XL expansion.
Isn't that nice of him?
But he said he'd ask for a big piece of the profits.
He wants a big piece of the profits.
I don't know if he means personally or
the country.
Or the country, whatever.
Well, I don't know. My guess is that, he could be a
This is a takeaway. This is a quote.
Yeah.
A Trump administration will focus on real environmental challenges, not the phony ones we've been looking at.
There you go. Now, I want to point out one of the real environmental challenges this guy commented on this last week was the drought in California. He went to California and he told the people there that the drought doesn't exist. And even if it did exist, he'd be able to end it just by that.
Amazing man.
Amazing. This guy should be a cartoon character. He should be limited to appearing in cartoons only. Now, I want to point out that he's in hot water over Trump University, which has had former employees that say the whole thing was a big fat lie.
Well, it's not a university.
It never was.
Never. That's what I mean.
Yeah, and it got closed down as a university because it wasn't a university, and they had to change it to the name to something else. But in addition to that, it got closed down for a bunch of other reasons, and now there's a whole bunch of people going after it because the whole thing was a scam, they say. So
Well, it was very high, very, very high-priced investment advice.
yeah, which you
And-
could get
and he
for
was
free elsewhere,
pressuring the students to enroll in these courses.
even if they didn't have money to support
Well,
it.
he told them how to
Max
go about
out
getting
the
new credit cards.
Yeah, there you go. I'll help you get a credit card so you can spend all the money with me. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Got to give it to him for being crafty.
Crafty, that's what he is. He's crafty.
Well, let's move along here.
Now let's get away from this rascal.
More Americans now work in solar power than in the extraction of oil and gas as one unit or coal.
Yeah, this is from CNN. I'm sorry, this is from Electrek. Solar power now has more employees than either oil and gas or coal extraction industries in the United States. The solar industry employed approximately 208,000 individuals at the end of 2015 versus more than 185,000 in oil and gas or 190,000 in coal extraction. And I will tell you, there won't be 190,000 people in coal mining by the end of this year because that industry is just falling apart. Now, Donald Trump wants to resurrect it.
Yeah.
He really does.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is going to make America great again by resurrecting the coal industry.
Yep, absolutely.
Putting in the Keystone XL. And also, I think there's two industries that he realizes the United States was a pioneering world leader in, and he wants to resurrect those again also.
Buggy whips?
Buggy whips being one, the other is manual typewriters. I was told that. I have to tell you, I don't actually know that's true, but you know, that's what I've been told. So
I'll tell you a little something about manual typewriters later on. No, it's just interesting. It's kind of fun.
you know, I did my typing on a manual typewriter. I know all about them.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, and I did a lot of
Takeaway
it.
on this one here is globally, solar power now, this is globally, solar power alone now directly employs 2.8 million people.
That's just solar.
Just solar,
Yeah,
globally. That's
globally.
a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. But, you know, we had that 8.1 million earlier on.
Well, this next item is the one I'm going to talk about.
Oh, goody.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a picture on that one.
Yeah, this is an interesting
Isn't that a
thing.
cute little picture? You could make one of these in your hobby shop, which also doubles as your kitchen table.
Well, if you notice that, those arcs up on top suggest that this thing can be manually turned.
Manually turned.
So you're not going to need a pump. I'll let you talk
This
about
is from
it.
Clean Technica.
What the headline is, hourglass. They're calling this thing an hourglass. Okay?
Well,
the
okay.
hourglass coal-killing steampunk energy storage system could pump more wind or solar into the grid, and it's an MIT gravity
And
flow
right.
battery.
And by the way, when the commercial version comes, it's
Yeah.
not going to look like this.
Oh, no, not at all. As a matter of
Okay.
fact, I don't think the real version looks like this. But
Yeah.
it may.
Cutting edge progress in flow battery technology is taking place in such areas as nanotechnology, membrane improvements, and membrane-less systems. A more mundane energy storage breakthrough from a research team at MIT focuses on a way to eliminate the pumps.
Well, the headline mentioned steampunk.
Yeah.
And I had to look up what steampunk meant. It's an art form
Yes.
that adds an antiquated Victorian aesthetic to modern technology. A good example of steampunk would be a steam-powered wheelchair.
Okay.
Okay, I saw a very clever version of a computer keyboard that a guy built out of wood, and all of the buttons were the hot typewriter buttons from the old-fashioned manual typewriter.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it was steampunk. You know, it was
Okay.
it was a real functioning modern computer keyboard made out of wood.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. And of course, a lot of people don't know anything about these flow batteries.
Well, I got a quick takeaway here. We've talked about them here.
But we have a thing about flow batteries coming up, don't we? Or is that not today?
Well, we've talked about it.
Okay, we don't have it in the news
I
this
don't
week?
think so, but I got a quick
There
takeaway
was
about what it is.
There was an item about flow batteries that came up in the news today, I guess. It's not in today's show.
Not in today's show.
Because we weren't able to put it in the schedule, but it will appear next week. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, a flow battery is a type of energy storage system that deploys liquid instead of solid material.
Yeah.
The typical setup enables two different liquids to flow adjacent to each other, separated only by a thin membrane. The nature of the liquids combined with the flowing action creates an electrical charge.
Yeah.
Okay, the two liquids can be stored in tanks of practically any size for practically any length of time, and they can be called quickly into action when needed.
Yeah.
With a round-trip energy efficiency as high as 91%.
This is impressive.
This is impressive.
Yeah, this is impressive technology, and really, this is something that's been under development for decades, but it's
coming of age.
It's coming of age, and we will see this. Just to kind of give you a spoiler, there's a flow battery. It's a vanadium flow battery that is being built in China, which will store 800 megawatt hours of electricity, and it's being built now. 800 megawatt hours.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Well, this, as you're looking at it, is a flow battery. It's a very, very small version of it.
Yes.
It can be as big, well, the reservoirs can be lakes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no limit to the size of this.
There's no limit, although you wouldn't want it in lakes because they...
No, you wouldn't want your valuable materials in there to evaporate.
Not only that, but you wouldn't want the birds to land in them. But
well, that's something else again. Well,
yeah, but the point is, if you have tanks that are big enough, you could put two super tankers next to each other.
That would work.
With a flow battery in between,
work.
and you could have a lot of charge.
You could bring it anywhere in the world where there's a shore.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are up to Saturday, May 28th.
And this one is, well, how would you say it's an eye-opener?
Eye-opener from Clean Technica.
How air pollution leads to heart disease.
Yes. Oh dear. A recent decade-long study follows the lives of over 6,000 U.S. residents. It has shed some new light on the connection between air pollution and heart disease and showed that people living in areas with more outdoor air pollution accumulate deposits in the arteries that supply the heart. So this is heart and circulatory disease. And by the way, I've said this before, people are going to recognize it. The World Health Organization says that Americans are spending an average of $680 each per year.
That's the average.
For medical
spread
expenses.
over everybody.
Yep, medical expenses relating to air pollution, and most of that shows up for most people in increased taxes and medical expenses. So everybody's paying it, unless the only people who are not paying this are people who meet four criteria. One of them is that they are healthy and will stay healthy. The second is they don't pay taxes. The third is they never will die. I forget the fourth. But $680
after that third
per
one,
person.
you don't need a fourth one.
Yeah, $680 per person, and that is per person. That's not per household. That is per person. If you have a 5-person household, then you're spending, if average household, $3,400 a year on medical expenses relating to air pollution.
Mm-hmm. Just air pollution.
Air pollution, yeah. And if your child has asthma, or if you have emphysema or lung cancer, or now they're saying heart disease, circulatory disease, and a few other disorders, you can say, well, thank you to the fossil fuel industry, because that's where most of this comes from. Okay.
The next one's interesting. It's a kind of new development. We've touched on this in the past.
This is from the Corner Economic.
European utilities will invest nearly €85 billion in renewables and networks.
The main European electricity companies will invest nearly 85 billion euros over the next 4 years to speed up their strategic transformation to enable them to deal with the foreseeable drop in coal and gas prices. They plan to focus more on renewable energy and networks. Now, this gets back to our thing of why are they building so much in the way of renewable power when the price of oil has gone down? And now this is saying they expect the price of oil to stay down or go down even more, and so they're avoiding spending money on things that use oil. What's going on here? This is not the peak oil scenario that people have been talking about for years.
No, this is different.
This is different. And it is the way peak oil is coming out in the real world.
Well, for the first time, really, there's been alternatives.
Yeah, how about that? And the alternatives are turning out to be cheaper than cheap oil.
That's much more surprising.
That's the really surprising thing. They're going to the alternatives because if you invest in oil, if you invest in an oil furnace, you're investing in an oil furnace, and your financial analysis of how that's going to be paid off probably depends on the price of oil as it is. But we don't know what the price of oil is going to be in a year.
Well, we don't know that, but...
So how do you factor that in a financial analysis? You do know what the price of sunshine is going to be.
I'd say Ouija board.
There you go. Ouija board for the oil, 0 for the sunshine. Okay. You don't have to pay for sunshine, at least not yet. It may be that some political genius is going to figure out a way to do that. And if it isn't Donald Trump who does that, it will probably be Hillary Clinton. Okay.
We got a picture coming up.
That was from the Corner Economic, by the way, and our next one is from North American Wind Power.
Nice picture.
Nice picture. Okay.
Amazingly, this picture is entitled Sun and Wind.
How about that? But what's the title of the
U.S. wind set. This is what it says. New generation record last quarter.
According to Sun Day Campaign, analysis of data for the first quarter of 2016, electric generation by wind rose 32.8% from the first quarter of 2015 and set a new record of 6.23% of total generation of electricity in the United States. Similarly, electrical generation from utility scale solar, thermal, and PVs grew by 31.4%, and again, somewhere between 50 and 75% of solar power on the grid has not been included.
They're not even noticing.
They're not even noticing it. So
among renewable energy sources, only biomass and geothermal experienced declines.
And they were
not very large,
very
1.4%, 1.6%.
Yep.
Nuclear power remained essentially stagnant.
Yes.
Coal dropped by 24.2%.
Although nuclear power is not stagnant, we'll have one more nuclear reactor on. It's already online.
It's already online. We talked about that
well,
one.
Online, it's already operating at about 15%.
Yeah, it's cooking. It's
cooking.
They're getting ready to put it online.
They're I don't know what they're doing with whatever power is generated, but it's at about 15% power. It's going through tests.
Yeah.
It'll probably be completely going there this summer. And
by the summertime.
Yeah, I don't know when the DOE is going to count it as being among the included in the capacity. Although we should also point out that there are 6 or 8 nuclear power plants that are threatening to shut down because they're not making money.
Yeah, that's happening too.
Okay, that was from North American Wind Power. Our next item is from Sunday, May 29th, and it is from Sierra Express Media.
It's entitled Harvesting the Sun.
Harvesting the Sun.
Scaling up solar power to meet Africa's energy needs.
Africa's energy
So this is about Africa.
According to HIS Technology, a U.S.-based economic and energy market research company, Africa's total solar capacity, estimated at 312 megawatts in 2013, grew to, that was 312 megawatts. It grew to 1,315 megawatts in 2015 and is projected to reach 3,380 megawatts by the beginning of 2017, a tenfold increase over a period of 4 years.
Well, they're moving.
They're moving
much slower than they probably should, because Africa has 7 of the 10 sunniest countries on Earth.
Yeah.
They got a lot of sun in Africa.
They do. They also have a lot of power that's going out in tiny systems. And by tiny systems, I'm talking about like this. You know, solar panels that big are going up on the roofs.
Going up on the roof of a mud hut.
That's right, or a grass shack. And you have that and a battery and an LED and a fancy computer. So.
Now this other one is kind of scary here.
Okay. Here's a nice picture of Easter Island. You see all those guys who are lined up on the beach there? Those are those famous Easter Island statues.
They're watching the sea approach.
Well, actually, they're not, because they're turned away from the sea.
Crazy picture, yeah.
But they are down by the beach, and this is a news item from an organization called Mashable. What do you got for a title?
World Heritage Sites. And there's a bunch of them.
There's a bunch. This is one of the things
being threatened by climate change.
Yeah, this is one of the links that Tom was talking about with a slideshow, and you should go to it because
many pictures on
many
this
pictures.
One. Yeah, this is a good.
Venice, Stonehenge, and the Statue of Liberty are among more than 24 World Heritage Sites threatened by climate change. According to a UNESCO report, emissions from burning fossil fuels are causing the greatest environmental threat facing the sites. Those statues on Easter Island, what they're worried about is that those guys are going to topple into the sea.
Well, in the case of Easter Island, it is the sea that's the threatening agent.
Right.
But other places like Yellowstone, which is nowhere near the sea, are being threatened by less snow melt and drier summers.
Right.
So every one of these sites is being threatened by a different aspect, all attributable
to climate change.
To climate change.
Stonehenge was one of the ones that was really
Stonehenge
interesting.
here, yeah. Increased rainfall has placed the plain it sits on at risk of flooding and soil erosion.
And what has happened is they have got critters of different kinds burrowing under those stones.
I heard that wasn't in the article.
Yeah, moles and
I've got a list of about 20 of these things, but I'm not going to go over them because we want to.
We don't have time, but you know this is
visit the site because it's just you can spend half a day looking on this site.
This is on the Sunday, May 29th listing, and it is Mashable. And
if you Google Mashable, I think you'll find it.
No, Mashable has a lot of stuff, but
Google World Heritage and Mashable.
Yeah,
it'll
Google World Heritage and climate change, and you'll probably get it. This particular story appeared in a bunch of publications. What happens here is, I see this. I went I got it when I went to BBC. I go to CNN and BBC. Those are among the two for.
But it's on numerous sites.
Two places. Mirrored. If I don't like an article that is at CNN or BBC, I will do a Google search specifically for that article, and so that's what I did, and that's how I got the
Sometimes I have to do that because I can't open it up or something like that.
That's right. And I had one article that came up a couple of years ago, and it was absolutely appalling. It was so badly written. But I saw that it was important. It had important information in it. And I did a Google search on it, and I did searches over and over again, and I kept coming up with the same article.
I've had that happen too.
That appeared in probably a dozen different publications, and it was just the same exact wording. Nobody had bothered to try to clean it up. So I didn't have time to do anything about it, and I wanted people to know, but anyway, it went into the blog as a very badly worded article, and I'm sorry for that, but it's all I had.
He didn't do it.
I didn't do it. No. Okay, our next item is from the Toledo Blade.
And it's about the U.S.
Yes.
Solar power demand intensifies. More people want it.
The U.S. solar market is expected to grow by years. Is expected by year's end to have grown 119% over 2015 numbers, with the number of panels installed providing a whopping 16 gigawatts of power, more than doubling last year's previous record-breaking 7.3 gigawatts, according to Boston-based GTM Research. Now, we should point out here, 16 gigawatts of solar is probably the equivalent of about 3 or 4 full-size nuclear power plants.
Okay.
Okay, you can think of a nuclear plant as a gigawatt, but 16 gigawatts of solar is not 16 gigawatts
because
of nuclear.
It's not generating anything at night, for
Yeah,
example.
for example, or on rainy days or whatever. Nevertheless, this is like saying, well, we're getting 3 or 4 gigawatts of solar at the same time that we're getting 1.1 gigawatts of nuclear this year, and that's the first nuclear we've had in 20 years. So this is a big change. And
Well, what it says here is the industry is being driven by continued falling prices in the cost of power generation from solar panels.
yes,
And also blossoming state policies mandating more use of green technologies such as solar and wind.
right.
And then there's new rules allowing those who have solar power to interconnect with the power grid. Net metering, in other words.
Yes, net metering or other systems. That's not the
Or
only
other
one.
ways, yeah. And the residential market is also soaring, although they're not measuring it.
They're not measuring it. This is crazy. The U.S. DOE says, oh, by the way, the amount of electricity, the demand for electricity in the United States fell 5% last year.
But what's happening with the solar industry, the residential solar industry, is surprising because there's a new industry practice that just began, the leasing of panels.
Yes.
So people who can't afford to buy them outright are able to lease them, and they're making some pretty good deals.
Yes, and that, by the way, is something. If you're interested in solar systems, I would suggest before you just say, "Oh, this is no money down, I'm going to do that." Look carefully because
there's a lot out there.
There's a lot out there, and there are places where you can borrow money. If you don't have a lot of money, you may be able to borrow money at zero interest on a 0% down loan.
We got a local bank that is pushing this particular thing, Vermont State Employees Credit Union.
Right, VSCCU, they're right behind this. And by the way, VSCCU, you would think that it's for Vermont state employees.
It's for anybody.
It's for anybody who
lives in Vermont
works
or
lives in Vermont.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of access there. And they are cooperating with Green Mountain Power and with other utilities, and getting a lot of power on people's rooftops and backyards and things like that. And that is part of the reason why the demand for electricity went down 5%, because people are putting the power up at their homes, and then they're doing net metering or whatnot. Net metering means the excess. Whether you generate excess or need more than you're generating,
More than you need, you can sell.
is grid related. But when you're producing power, you're the first consumer. So it's just subtracted from what the grid produces. And so part of the 5% reduction is related to that. Part of it is efficiencies of various kinds in addition. So we're up to Monday, May 30th. And we have something new on that too.
This is pretty close to being local.
Yeah.
Eversource's Northern Pass transmission line hits a regulatory snag.
Ah.
And the subheading is Eversource has proposed to bury 60 miles of the infrastructure in the White Mountain National Forest. Now the operative word there is bury.
Yeah. Take a look at the picture.
That would help, wouldn't
Picture.
it?
Yes, it would.
Yeah, here we go.
There you go. And this is not, by the way, the exact ground where the transmission lines will be buried, but the transmission lines will not be running over those mountains. They'll be running kind of under and around them.
Well, I took a look at the transmission, the route that they're following.
Yep.
And I compared it with the highway route. It would seem to me that the cheapest way for them to bury the power would be like along the breakdown lanes of an interstate,
right,
which is going exactly from point A to point B.
Yes.
But they're not.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going really on.
I don't know what they're doing, but
I also know there's a lot of local opposition about it.
well, primarily Go ahead.
The Appalachian Mountain Club,
Yeah.
the Long Trail.
Yeah.
Now, this cuts right across the Long Trail. So for a period of time, maybe a week, there's going to be some disruption. But what's the big problem? They're going to bury these things. They got modern trenching machines. They can probably bury a mile of it in a day.
Well, the fact is, with modern trenching machines, you could conceivably go under you can go under a road while people are driving on it. With not modern trenching machines, but you've got digging machines that can
pretty
do that.
close to it. I mean, yeah, you're going to have flagmen directing traffic around the trenching machine. But yeah, you can. That's why I say, do it in a breakdown lane. You're not even interfering with traffic.
Yep. I'm going to read
Interstate 95, or what is it? It's 89, isn't it?
89, yes.
Yeah, they've got breakdown lanes.
MassLive.com is the source for this. I'll read the little note that I've got
That
on
would
it.
help.
New Hampshire's utility siting regulators have extended the deadline for action on the Northern Pass transmission project to September 30th, 2017, delaying plans for the $1.6 billion 192-mile power line by months. Eversource Energy had hoped to get its permits this year. So they're delaying this thing by...
Well, there's some information here about where the opposition's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay, it's coming from two sides normally at odds.
Yeah.
One is the environmental community,
Yep.
and the second one, which you might expect, a trade group representing power plants.
Yeah.
Foes, including the Appalachian Mountain Club, say the product threatens to ruin the state's scenic beauty. Now, I don't see how burying cables is going to ruin
It's not all buried, though.
anybody's.
This is
Well, no,
only
but-
about a third of it is buried, a little less.
But the part of that's going through the national forest,
That's
White
buried.
Mountain, that's all buried.
That's buried, right. Okay, we are up to an item from cbc.ca, I think.
Well, let's pull it up here.
Yeah. Canada's
I'm gonna
status.
Put you up there.
Okay.
Canada's energy superpower status threatened as the world shifts off fossil fuel.
Canada's status as an energy superpower is under threat because the global dominance of fossil fuels could wane faster than previously believed, according to a draft report from the Canadian federal government's think tank. It sees fossil fuels becoming relegated to a minority status in the not very distant future. And, you know,
What they're missing here is the whole of Canada, really, but particularly Quebec and New Brunswick. See, New Brunswick, no, it's further up. They have an enormous amount of hydro potential.
yes,
Enormous amount.
Enormous.
And that's true all across a belt of Canada, which is suitable land. They got a lot of rivers, a lot of lakes,
Right.
very few people.
yep. So our next item is from the Columbian, and this is one of the most unbelievable photographs I have seen in a
I'll
long
get this
time.
one up. This is interesting.
Yeah.
This is a flow battery.
This is this is a flow battery. This is pumped storage. It's like the Northfield Mountain Station, except that this doesn't look like the Northfield. The Northfield Mountain Station, if you see it, it looks like a lake in the mountains. This thing,
Which it is.
yeah, which it is. This thing looks a little bit different. It looks like something from a Star Wars movie or
Well,
something.
it is. I'll read the
Yeah.
headline because this was a second-order consequence that I don't think anybody predicted.
Yeah.
Czech hydro plant becomes a top stop. Visitors drawn by beautiful views in a 37-acre lake.
The Dluhy Strana pumped storage plant in the Czech Republic was built to balance electricity demands between day and night, but as renewable sources of energy have taken an increasing share of electricity generation, it now contributes to the stabilization of the power grid.
Well,
so
historically, these things were built to buy power cheap at night
Yep.
and sell it back to the grid during the day and
Right.
make money on it.
In other words, they were backing up thermal generating plants like coal plants and like nuclear plants and like
Well, I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
The one down in Northfield was pretty much built because
for
Yankee.
Vermont Yankee, yeah.
And it wasn't a bad idea.
No, and now, you know, now that they have been achieving that goal, they're being used to achieve the goal of backing up renewable energy sources that are intermittent.
They're there.
Yeah, the
And
thing
they're
is
using
there.
them. It makes sense.
Yeah, these things are huge. The one at Vermont Yankee, the one downriver from Vermont Yankee, Northfield Mountain, the maximum output of that pumped storage facility was exactly double the output of Vermont Yankee.
Of Yankee, yeah, I know it was twice
So
the
this
size,
thing is
yep.
huge, and it's a park. You can go through and hike, and the only thing you're not allowed to do is swim in the reservoir.
What I liked about this one
I
here
shouldn't
is
say
to
that's
get to the
not the
top.
only thing. Yeah.
Okay. Visitors can board buses.
Yeah.
Okay. Or they can take a ski lift.
Yes.
Or they can walk or hike up.
Yes.
And to get down, this is brilliant. You can rent a bike and enjoy a 10-mile downhill ride on a paved road.
Goody.
You can rent a bike. Once you get up there, you take the
can-
bus up there.
you
You
take
can
the
rent
bus
a bike and go
rent a
all
bus.
downhill.
There you go.
For 10 miles. That
For
sounds
10
like
miles.
fun.
It
I think
does,
I'll go
doesn't
over
it?
there myself.
Yep. Our next item is from Tuesday, May 31st, and it comes from globalnews.ca.
Oh, this is a biggie. This is a biggie. Let me pull this one up.
Oh, we've got that up. There it is.
It's up already.
It's up
How'd
already.
that happen?
We had a picture up. Okay. So this is about, tell them what it's about, Tom.
Let me get the picture there.
There you go.
Is tide turning?
We're very professional here.
Is tide turning for the awe-inspiring Bay of Fundy tidal power? And that is a picture of a turbine being built for the Cape Sharp tidal project.
Yep.
And I got a few words about it that's kind of...
Yeah,
kind
Tom's
of bring
got
it
a
up
few
to date.
words for you. The currents of the Bay of Fundy would easily generate enough power for all of Atlantic Canada's needs, but have been too monstrously strong to be tamed. Now, Cape Sharp Tidal is betting on 2 turbines it will start installing in June. Each 2-megawatt turbine weighs 1,000 tons. That thing is big. And you know, when I first saw that picture, I thought, well, that thing isn't very big. It's only about, what, 10 feet across? And then I realized it's not where those people walking in front are.
No,
It's
it's further
where
back.
those little teeny people in the distance are.
Well, those blades are 6 feet long. There's
Yep.
12 of them.
Yep.
And wait a second, that was an earlier one.
Yeah.
The speed they had a pilot project in 2009
Yeah.
where they tried to put in a large 1-megawatt turbine.
Yeah.
And the speed and power of the water was so massive that the 12 6-foot blades were snapped off the 400-ton turbine almost immediately.
Within minutes of the time it was put in.
So they've gone and made a much, much bigger one.
Which reminds me of the old gunsmith's adage, you know, which I know from having been a hack gunsmith. When a part doesn't fit, get a bigger hammer.
Well, they've got a bigger hammer this time.
They sure did.
This is also interesting. I'll quickly mention what the Bay of Fundy is or where it is. It begins just about where Maine ends. And it's about 100 miles long. It lies between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. And it's about 25 miles wide. And it's got among the highest, it does have the highest tide in the world.
Yep.
And they've had a couple of small tidal plants that worked, but they were very small. Every time they tried a larger scale one, the tide tore it to pieces.
Yeah.
So now they got this huge thing here, which is 50 feet in diameter.
Oh.
This is a big guy.
Yeah, this is a big guy.
And to use the word that Mr. Trump has made famous, this is huge.
Okay.
So we got to see what happens. We got to see. They're preparing to install it.
Okay.
This fall.
We are up to an item from Renewable Energy Focus.
Aha.
Aha.
Let me put you up there.
Put me up
We
there.
don't have
No picture for you.
No picture
Renewable
for this
Energy Focus. What's the title?
This is a good one too. New technologies to convert landfill waste into clean energy sources.
UK-based company Renovair Fuels Limited has co-invented technology that could convert landfill gas into high-quality clean energy in the form of liquid diesel or gasoline fuel suitable for all motor vehicles. This would allow landfill operators to sell fuel for vehicles.
So instead of selling the energy or using them to run turbines, they're turning it into fuel.
Yeah.
And it's basically methane.
It's basically methane, which is...
You can make anything out of methane if you got the right kind of equipment. Not anything, but anything plastic,
anything
you can make out of oil.
Anything that's based on carbon, basically. Yep. So you got methane, it's CH4. You've got octane, it's C8H18. And so how do you get from one to the other? Well, you bump out a bunch of the hydrogens and connect the carbons together, and that's how you do it. And it's not a big deal. It's just a matter of having the cheapest technology.
You said octane, and octane basically is gasoline.
Yeah. So, these are, I had an acquaintance once who was a chemist, organic chemist, and he said you can get from any carbon-based molecule to any other carbon-based molecule if you just know how to do it.
Yeah, and they've known how to do it for a long, long time.
They have, yeah. From methane, yes, they have known for a long time. The patents, original patents on processes that do this sort of thing date back to the
early part of the
20th century. Yeah. 1912, 1920, that sort of time. We are up to Wednesday, June 1st.
Let's see, we got a picture of this one.
We do. Ooh, that's an ugly picture.
Ooh, it is, isn't it?
And if you look at the buildings...
There's a lot of pictures in this article, too.
Man, if you look at that picture on the screen right now, and you look closely at those buildings, you'll see that the siding on those buildings in the background has melted. That's why
like some of the cars have melted.
Yeah, well, a bunch of things have not functioned quite as well as people might have liked, but the buildings at least are standing.
In case you haven't figured out what we're talking about, it's the Fort McMurray fire.
Yep.
And the article, the news now is that the first residents are returning home.
Yeah, first. BBC gave us this. Some Fort McMurray residents are to return home for the first time since a huge wildfire displaced 90,000 people. Alberta's Premier, Rachel Notley, said conditions needed for the return of residents had been met. 3 neighborhoods, however, are to remain off limits, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it's still too crummy to move back.
Well, they've got a bunch of problems, and part of the problem is smoke being one. The infrastructure for electricity was destroyed in a lot of places, and they had to get things hooked back up again. Same thing with water and sanitation, the whole thing. They had to make sure that they could provide people with livable conditions. And one of the things they told residents coming back to this is bring enough supplies to last for 2 weeks.
Yep.
So this is not an easy time for these people.
Well, the fire is still burning.
Yes, in about a dozen different places.
It's covering about 2,000 square miles total. It's a whole bunch of little fires. But we add them all up together. You're talking about 2,000 square miles. That's a lot of fire.
Yeah, it's split up and gone in every direction. And
some of it is actually moving into Saskatchewan.
Yep.
Far as we know now, none of the oil sands have caught fire. They're really trying their best to protect them.
They had very extensive protection for those oil sands, big fire breaks, very broad fire breaks. Fire will jump broad fire breaks sometimes, and this kind of fire could. I mean, the Peshtigo fire in Wisconsin in the 1870s, 1880s.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Jumped Green Bay, which is a minimum of 10 and maximum of 20 miles across. And there are people who believe that it jumped Lake Michigan because there were fires in the state of Michigan the same day. But and this fire jumped rivers, but nevertheless it is it's a big fire and that could move around in different directions. But weather conditions are cooler. This was based on weather in northern Alberta that was 90 degrees on the 1st of May.
Yes, it was extremely hot.
It had broken
extremely hot and dry.
Previous record by 8 degrees. Okay, should we move on from this?
Well, I guess we will. I mean, it's The only thing I can say is these fires are going to be with us pretty much all summer.
Very possibly. They're saying pretty much all summer. Last summer they had the fires. Again, it was the same thing, climate change and El Nino bringing high temperatures, and the fires just persisted until snow came. Okay. Our next item is from Inhabitat. Inhabitat.
Right. China added half of the new global wind power capacity in 2015.
Now, this is interesting. According to Global Data Report, China installed 30.5 gigawatts of wind power in 2015, which accounts for nearly half of all new global wind energy installations. The U.S. installed 8.6. That is number 2, behind China at 30.5. We had 8.6. While third place, Germany installed 6.1. Brazil and India each installed 2.6. And that picture, I believe, is a wind power installation in China. It's conceivable.
It says it is in China.
It says, yeah, but that title is there because I put it there.
Oh.
You know, every once in a while I get fooled by these things. But anyway, that is that. And
there's a good slideshow, by the way, on this website.
Yes.
Really nice slideshow.
Yep.
You can be busy for a long time.
Our next item is from the BBC. And it says, it talks about more of the same thing. Go ahead, Tom.
I just wanted to mention one thing here. There was a link in this article.
Yes.
And it said, related. China puts the brakes on the construction of 200 coal-fired plants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we actually had something about that on the show a couple of times ago.
The times they are changing.
They are changing. Our next item is from the BBC.
Okay, let's.
And this is our last.
This is the last
thing,
one, isn't it?
For the
renewable energy surges to record levels around the world.
Solar, wind, and hydropower sources were added in 2015 at the fastest rate the world has yet seen, according to the Renewables Global Status Report. Investments in renewables during the year were more than double the amount spent on new coal and gas-fired power plants combined. And by the way, that is not just true worldwide, it is also true in the United States, more than double. It was, in fact, I have read some accounts saying it was upwards of 70% for renewables. And the reason is, even though fossil fuel prices are at lows, the oil and gas prices for new infrastructure are at very low point, and the price of fossil fuels can go up. The price of the sunshine and the wind is not expected to go up.
This has got a lot of people baffled, though, because the price goes down, purchases are supposed to go up. And it isn't happening.
It isn't happening because it's cheaper to put in renewable power.
There are alternatives.
And for people who think about renewable power as being intermittent, yes, it is true, and I've said this many times before.
Bring on the flow batteries.
It is intuitively obvious. The sun and the moon are intermittent sources. It is intuitively obvious that if you're going to be assured, if you want to be assured that the light will come on in the kitchen when you throw the switch at 2 o'clock in the morning, it is intuitively obvious that you cannot depend upon the sun and the moon, the sun and the wind. But I will add, it was intuitively obvious to Isabella that the world was flat.
That's true too. Isn't
it? And it turns out that in experience in the real world has shown us that when you're talking about utility scale power that's distributed around the area that you're in geographically, and it's distributed among a variety of power sources, which include solar and wind, but also include biogas, biomass, hydro, geothermal, and so forth. All you've got to do is throw a computer in there and the whole thing becomes very reliable.
Virtual utilities.
Virtual power plant. And
there's an interesting takeaway here. Last year they added solar. The world added 147 gigawatts of capacity.
Yep.
That's equivalent to all of the African generating capacity from all sources.
We have to go. See you guys.
We're about over. 17 seconds.
Hope to see you next time around.
I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.